All right, welcome back to the Next Aid Station podcast. I am your host, Jake Kilgore. We've been tackling a ton of trail running podcasts and had a lot of running experiences in here. Really, over the summer, it's been awesome. As many of you know, I'm heavily involved in the solar space. So today's special guest and very good friend of mine, Paul Stephan, who is a principal at GoodLeap and Chief Business Development Officer.
That's right.
Is here in town, in studio with me, good friend. Paul, what's up, dude?
Thanks, Jake. Glad to be here, man. I appreciate it.
Well, hey, we've spent the last few hours together. We had lunch, we visited the new building, and now we've come right back to where our relationship started 3-4 years ago in our little quaint office of One Solar. And are things a little different now than when we first met?
Yeah, things are, to say the least, things are different. I remember this 3, 4, 5 years ago, whatever it was, coming out. I remember thinking, I like the people. The business is kind of small, but it's got legs. They've got, you always had in my opinion, you always had the right approach on the business, which keep cost low, be very wise about where I invest money, where we spend time. Others at the time were always focused on grow at any cost. You had a different mindset, and I think that's paying dividends for you now because the business seems very healthy. You're clearly growing, and I think you picked the right time to hammer down. So I think the market right now will create some opportunities.
I couldn't agree more, but thank you for that. That's awesome to hear from you. I know at the time, our first rep was Dustin Mansell.
Yep.
Also solid dude, good friend of yours and mine. My rep is now Emily at GoodLeap. Also very blessed to have her right on our side as part of your team. But maybe for the listeners, describe your role at GoodLeap as business development. What exactly does that mean? What are you over? What do you do? What are you responsible for?
Oh yeah. Okay. Sure. So I'm with the company now 16 years. We started the company in 2003. I joined in 2007. I had sold my own company at one point, and prior to that, and had an opportunity to decide what I wanted to do next. And so I stepped in, and we had a mortgage banking platform that I oversaw for the company for a couple of years. Economic downturn, 2008. We decided to diversify. We built a company called Paramount Solar. Paramount Solar grew very quickly. We're one of the fastest growing solar companies in the nation at the time. We had an opportunity to sell the business to Solar City in 2013. Myself, Hayes, who is our chairman of the board, Matt Dawson, who's one of our founders, and a few others were tasked to going over to Solar City, and we took very strategic roles there. My responsibility at Solar City was I took over all of residential sales. And so I had about 6,500 people on my team there, and we sold a lot of solar. And so we sold Solar City to Tesla in 2016, and gave us an opportunity to pause for a moment and look around. And for us, it's always been about being disruptive and being positive in the environment. And what can we do? And so we saw there was an opportunity. We loved solar. We wanted to stay in solar for sure. And so what we saw was we had 10 plus years as financial experience as mortgage bankers and also in solar. And then we had another 10 years of contracting experience under our belt. I think at the peak, my team was selling somewhere between 22 and 24,000 new solar jobs per month. So ton of finance background, ton of solar at scale. And then we saw an opportunity to combine the two, and we thought solar finance needed a little bit of a shakeup. So we entered the space at the tail end of 2017. And really started to scale in 2018. And to your question, I oversee, the business really started as consumer finance around financing solar. And so I started this side of the business, and we've grown it. And since then, we've added home improvement, which is growing very quickly for us, and a few other things. We've got about 1,200 employees now.
That's phenomenal. I've always said GoodLeap is solar.
Yeah.
I believe you're the best company in all of solar, in the entire industry of any solar company that exists that we work with or work around. I have always held GoodLeap to the highest regard. And when I met you, you were Lone Pal. So I have you in my phone with Lone Pal. I have Emily and Dustin, Lone Pal.
Sure.
What why the transition from Lone Pal to GoodLeap?
Why the name change?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's important to know where the name comes from. So we have a series of businesses that all have good in the name, Good Finch, GoodLeap, and there are others. There will be others. LEAP is an acronym. It stands for Life, Earth, and Prosperity. So good for life, earth, and prosperity is GoodLeap. And so for us, we recognize as men and women who've been in the workforce now for more years than I'd like to admit, you get to a point where you have a choice of what you want to do and how you want to spend your time. And for us, it always centers around doing good for the planet, doing good for people. No matter what we do, you have to come back to that. And so that concept is always very important to us. And solar, we fell in love with solar. When we launched our solar company in 2009, we absolutely fell in love with what solar can do for the environment, what it can do for sales professionals, and what it can do for homeowners from a savings standpoint. And so keeping that as sort of a core foundation for us and a core principle just allowed us to expand now into home improvement and with the same sort of philosophy of good. And so we have Good Finch, which is Good Financial Chi is that acronym. Good Finch is an asset buyer. So as you know, if you may or may not know about GoodLeap for the listeners, we write loans, we fund those loans, and then like every other lender in the space, those loans get sold to a takeout investor. We thought if we're going to create the assets, we should also have to buy some of the assets and show the outside community we believe so much in these assets that we will buy our own in some cases as well. So Good Finch is another business that we have, and they all center around good.
Okay, man. I'm down with GoodLeap. I'm down with Good Finch. Yep. I'm still keeping it at Lone Pal on my phone. Sure. I have a Lone Pal mouse pad.
Okay.
By my computer.
I'm
not swapping out the Lone Pal.
Okay. For you, we can be Lone Pal.
Okay.
For everybody else, we're GoodLeap.
Okay. So I'm going to skip right over the questions that I think some people. I hope that our industry is over these questions. I'm certain that you are. We're going to skip right over the why the GoodLeap fees and how come fees keep increasing and interest rates. I am tired of that conversation. Sure. So since we are running the podcast today, we get to choose. We're not talking about that. We're going to skip right over it, and I'm going to jump right into TPO.
Okay.
Third-party owned products.
Sure.
GoodLeap does loans.
Yeah.
You guys process loans, you sell them, and that's your core business, whether it's solar or other home improvement products. But TPO is making a movement inside of solar for the past 12 months. Every month, I think it's gaining more and more market share.
Yeah.
What's your take on TPO? How's that affecting the industry? Why is there such a big move to TPO in today's solar environment?
Yeah. So I think TPO is great. I think loans are great. I think TPO is great. The product itself is kind of or irrelevant to me. I think it's just about making sure the homeowner gets what's right for them. So the way I would answer it is, as long as salespeople are educated and well-versed at what they're selling to the consumer, and they're doing their exploration with that homeowner, the customer gets the right product. It doesn't matter. I don't care if it's a loan or if it's TPO. I mean, we know TPO very well. It's always sold, as I think I mentioned, in our conversations. My team was selling between 22 and 24,000 TPO jobs every month. So we know it really well, and we think it's a good product for the right customer in the right circumstances. And so I think with the interest rates going up, as we skipped obviously that part a little bit, but obviously everyone knows interest rates have been on the move, and we've seen more interest rate hikes in the last couple of years that we've seen at any other time in history. And with those interest rate hikes, the consumer's payment go up in an effort. We all know what solar is about. Solar is still sold, not bought, meaning it requires a salesperson to educate the homeowner, and most homeowners are still not well versed in it. Because it is a want more than it's a need today, customers need to see savings, and a product that has a lower payment for the consumer is usually very appealing. And so I think that's what's gaining the most steam. We went from 100% TPO because the industry really started with TPO. 100% TPO. I think prior to the rate hike cycle that we're seeing right now, TPO probably dropped to about 30%, and now I think it's coming back. 40%, maybe 50%. We'll see where it settles out. But I also think we're going to see interest rates drop again over the next probably 18 months or so, knock on wood. And when that happens, we start getting back to payment parity between loans and TPO. I think things will normalize again, if I had to guess.
Yeah. So TPO, which is like a lease or a PPA, for those listening, it means that essentially the homeowner doesn't actually own the solar system on their home.
That's right.
Like they would a cash purchase or a purchase through a GoodLeap or Dividend or Sunlight or whoever your competitors are that do loans. So that's all I've known. I entered the solar space and energy efficiency space in 2011.
Yep.
And it's been purchases for 12 years.
Yeah.
It's all I've ever known. I was very resistant this year. Like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing, PPAs. I'm not doing leases. And I was very stubborn to the change. And now that we've made the change, we're still learning those. And man, the obstacles for funding, for hitting these milestones and making sure that the homeowner or the sales rep, making sure everyone has a good experience, it is a different game.
Yeah.
And with GoodLeap, where do you see your guys falling between loan and TPO? You feel like you're going to stay strong and just hold out for the next 18 or 24 months, or are you going to work some agreements and arrangements with TPO products?
Yeah, great question. I think it's, first and foremost, we want to make sure that homeowners are getting the types of products that they deserve in a marketplace. Salespeople, sales professionals are able to sell what makes the most sense. And obviously we provide what our clients need and want. And so, for the last 5 years, we've looked at TPO and we'll continue to look at it. And I think at some point, if we think it's the right thing for us to launch, then I think we'll launch a TPO product. I don't know that we're fully decided yet. We're not in the yes or no camp. I think the thing that most people don't know about GoodLeap, because we have had, I think we got up to a point where we're about 45% market share in solar. And so I think most people look at our company as, the big solar, player in the space. We recognize as interest rates started to change that there was going to be some toxicity in the space. So we intentionally allowed the solar side of our business to shrink a little bit. And I think you and other of our clients know this very well. We spent a lot of time, energy, and effort to build out the home improvement financing side of our business, which today is 4 or 5 times larger than solar. We'll do 4 or 5 times more home improvement loans this month than we will solar. And so for us, it's a little bit of a teeter-totter. Is if solar is being compressed a little bit and there's some toxicity, it's a good strategy to allow your other solar lenders to absorb some of that toxicity. That's a strategic play that I think others would recognize. There's some strategy there. And then there's an opportunity for us to be very disruptive in the home improvement space. I mean, I think we'll probably fund, 25,000 home improvement loans this month, give or take, maybe 30,000. And so we love that space. The total addressable market is much larger. There's so many more clients that we can help there, whether it's HVAC, roofing, windows and doors, you name it. But I will tell you, solar is near and dear to my heart. I mean, that's been my background for so long. And so I don't see a time when solar ever goes away for us. Certainly not if I have anything to do about it or say about it. But I think we have to be very strategic in what we offer and when. So it was a short question. I gave you a very long answer. I think the short answer is we always look at TPO. Now is no different. If we decide that we're going to get into the TPO space, we will, and we'll do it in a very disruptive way, and we'll make a splash just like we did it for the loan side.
I have no doubt that would happen. It would you make the splash. Your guys' attention to relationships in business and in the space is unprecedented. I think you guys have such a great team around you that truly values the relationship. I have felt that. I've seen it, and I totally agree with you. That's the direction I'd love to see you guys go. I think others would love to see it go that direction. With that being said, there is this balance between loan and TPO, and education standpoint. I think that there are people out there, organizations out there selling perhaps the wrong way with TPO because of lack of education.
Sure.
Right? They know they need to sell it because of interest rates or whatever, and it's this whatever they're trying to sell. But as that relates to like regulations and regulators, like what are you seeing out there I always say GoodLeap sees everyone's dirty laundry.
Yes.
So like, what are you seeing from a regulation standpoint inside of residential solar that we should all be aware of?
Yeah, that's wow. It's going to get dark. I think this is where if you're going to listen to anything, this is the part that you listen to. History repeats itself, and this is not the first time that a relatively unregulated industry has seen a lot of growth. And then now we're seeing some economic constraints, right? With inflation coming up, interest rates coming up, and that's going to create a lot of pressure on homeowners. I would amend one thing that you said. I do think that there's a ton of TPO that is sold incorrectly. I think there's a lot of loans that are sold incorrectly as well.
Yeah.
I think there so my background as I mentioned earlier, but I'm a salesperson by trade. I started by selling over the phone, knocking doors, selling over the kitchen table. That's my background. And so I've always believed, as I know you do as well, is I have to be a professional in my craft, and I have to know everything I possibly can. So it doesn't matter what the product is. If you're selling a loan to a homeowner who has no tax liability, that's probably the wrong product for that homeowner. If you're selling TPO and the consumer wants overall long-term savings over time, they're going to be in the home for the next 25 years, and you're not paying attention to what the economics are between, like, we know the payment is lower, but if it's got a 2.9 escalator as an example, the break-even point might be year 7, 8, 9. Well, what happens after that? And if you look at 25 years against 25 years, the customer pays significantly more money on TPO over that 25-year period of time. If the customer doesn't know that, God forbid the salesperson doesn't know that, that's a problem. So I think you just have to be educated on what is the right product for the consumer and just sell that. Don't sell what's easiest for you. Don't sell whatever pays you the most money. That's where you run into problems. And your question was really more about regulation. Regulators are not dumb. Okay. There are 14 attorneys general that are talking to us right now and all the other lenders as well. And they're looking for guidance. They want to regulate this space. And if we don't self-regulate, they're going to step in and regulate for us. And self-regulation is very hard, very hard.
I know that you're familiar with the RSA, the Residential Solar Association, that I'm involved in with a number of other people that we all know, including Dustin Mansell, GoodLeap, on the board with me as well. And a bunch of incredible leaders in our industry that are standing this up this year. It's becoming more and more official, more wide known, to get other solar C-level executives or owners involved in the RSA, which is really based around that self-regulation.
Yeah.
Why is self-regulation so hard? Why do you say that?
Competition erodes self-regulation, right? So if we look at an example, like one of the things I think is fantastic for sales organizations short term is the red line model as an example, right? If you have, so here's what it is, as a salesperson, putting me in a position where I can have unlimited earning potential is fundamentally a good thing in itself in a bubble. For an industry long term without regulation, it becomes problematic. And we saw this in the mortgage space. As you know, that's my background. We saw this in the mortgage space in 2008, 9, 10, big economic downturn, and then regulation entered the space. There's the regulations called Dodd-Frank. And Dodd-Frank did things like looked at how much commission do salespeople make. And this is the commission on mortgages back in the day were very similar to where commissions are today in solar. And the ability to charge, they're very similar to a red line model today. You could kind of charge whatever you wanted, and it's points and fees. Regulators came in, they put a stop to it very quickly. They maxed out. I think the most you can make now as a mortgage professional is $1,500 or something like that. I don't know the exact number. I've been out of that side of the business for so long. But that is the playbook that regulators will tap into, is what other industries have we seen something similar happen to? And then can we just employ that same model? So if we don't self-regulate, others that don't know the space as well as us will enter. They'll put their idea of the appropriate regulations, and it will create massive pain for the industry.
So being that you guys are such a large gorilla in the space of lending solar, what is GoodLeap doing to help us self-regulate or to help vet installers or vet people you're onboarding it onto your platform?
Yeah, there's a lot. And so from a governance standpoint, we have a government affairs group that works very closely with the legislators and regulators and those folks to keep them well educated. Obviously, we're, political action committees and all of those sorts of things, groups like the one that you're involved in. But I think you have to lead from the front. And so in situations like this, it's okay to be vocal. Imagine an environment where you come out and say a salesperson should not have unlimited earning potential on one deal. Like, that's kind of a taboo statement, right? Mm-hmm. There's 10,000 salespeople that would want to charge this building with pitchforks and torches, right? Mm-hmm. But fundamentally, if you said you can have 3 years of that model that exists today, or you could have 30 with 75% of the same earning potential, which do you pick? And it's not a perfect analogy, but it is to say, if we don't self-regulate and if we allow things to continue to run the way that they're running today, and you can ask some very strategic questions. Like, if you were a regulator or I was a regulator, we know exactly what questions to ask to uncover some areas within the space that I think would raise some eyebrows, that would drive change. Right? How much does the average salesperson make as a percentage of the loan? Okay, great. How much is the ITC? Wait a minute, those numbers seem to line up pretty closely. My tax dollars are going to pay for it's not the right answer, but regulators who don't know this industry as well as we do will draw conclusions, and I think will implement a fair amount of pain. So we have to get in there. We have to be brave. We have to be courageous. But it is very, very difficult. Your question was, why is it so difficult? Because if I make a decision to do something that is self-regulatory, it creates an opportunity for you, my competitor across the street, who maybe says, oh, that's draconian, we don't like it. And it could be anything. It's capping commission or something like that. I'll just pay everybody $10 more, and then I steal all of your people. Right? So it's really hard. Even if you want to do the things that you believe are right, competition usually prevents that. And so it usually ends up with a regulator who is an uninterested party to come in and impact everyone exactly the same.
So it does seem fair to say that in most cases, doing things the right way or the best way cost more money. And it's more expensive.
Yeah, they can.
They can. So on an installer side where margins are thin, demand is high, red lines are aggressive, I have to compete, right? I have to get volume. So if I'm a salesman listening to this, or a sales team, how do I know that installer is healthy? That installer is legit, like that they might be offering me the world's greatest red line, the world's greatest deal.
Yeah.
But I have no idea if they're healthy.
Yeah.
I think our industry sinks or floats with a healthy installer.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So how does a sales rep or sales manager, owner know? How does he know who to go with?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, you can always look at financials and get a better sense. If you're going to enter into a relationship, whether it's a joint venture or anything along those lines, it makes sense to understand the financial position of the person you're entrusting, especially if that's the person who's going to get the money and is required to disperse the money to you. That's really wise. I would modify the question just a little bit, though. What I would say is, if we want to keep this industry healthy, we have to understand where all of the margins lie, because there's a lot of myth that exists in the space, right? We skipped the part, and we don't have to, by the way. I love this as a topic. There's some very, like, if you Google the Facebook Solar Pros, the chat room, right, the page. So I'm on there periodically. I read it. I very rarely respond. I would say 80% of the time I read comments and I think to myself, this person does not understand what's actually happening in the space. What they are sharing is an opinion stated as fact. 20% of the time, there's some really well-educated people in there who come back and they understand how this space works, right? So in a thing that I think a lot of sales professionals don't know yet, when they look at the entire stack, they say things like, they look at dealer fees is a great example. And they say, oh my God, these banks, criminal dealer fees, and I'll make up a number, 30% dealer fee. What they don't understand is how finance actually works in the space. The lender doesn't make 30%. On $100,000, if you use a $100,000 loan as an example, right, 100% of a loan, the lender is lending that money and selling that paper to an investor who's buying it at a discount. That investor is probably buying that for 65 cents on the dollar, right? And so you go, wait a minute. So the lender is now upside down by 35%, right, on that, or whatever the number might be, maybe 25%, so a better number. And so the delta becomes the dealer fee, right? So really, most lenders in the space, whether it's a Sunlight, a Mosaic, a Dividend, a GoodLeap, roughly, everybody makes about gross 5% margin, and then most everybody has a 2 to 3 point cost stack. So net margin, the lenders are typically making about 2 points or 2% on a loan. Okay, so if you say it's a $45,000 loan, guys, the lender makes $900 on that deal. Full stop. Not 30%.
Right.
That's not the way it works.
How do you see the cost stack of a solar deal? Take a $50,000 solar job.
Yeah.
And you got a 30% dealer fee.
Yeah.
So 15 grand out to there, and then they're going to make their margin on that, which is a few points.
Yep.
Given your experience of seeing everyone's financials and all these companies, not everyone's, but a lot of companies, a lot of financials have float across your desk.
Yeah.
And then you take the stack of a sales org and then the stack of an installer.
Yeah.
And there's maybe a tech company in there or something. What's your experience there with that cost stack of solar?
Like how it breaks out?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at a high level, the salesperson on the doors, usually, in this case on the doors, makes the most in the entire transaction. And I think plenty would argue they're the originator and the deal wouldn't exist without them, et cetera, et cetera. Cool. I'm a salesman. I don't argue with that at all. I think it's a free market economy, and if that's what you can command for your services, then God bless. But I think to your point, what we have to recognize is if EPCs do not make healthy margins, they cannot, and we are seeing EPCs go out of business more now than we've ever seen before, because they have very skinny margins, and they have very skinny margins in part because of a red line model. Part of it is red line, and that's not to blame anyone. It's not salespeople's fault. Like I said, I've already acknowledged that's like, right. God bless, go for it. But as an EPC, you got to be really, really good at running your business efficiently. What I typically see, to your point, from a margin standpoint, is we typically see single digit margins, right? Like 9%, 8%, 6%, 3%, you name it. And so when then you see an economic downturn or some changes that we've seen in our space over the last 12 months, a lot of times the EPC can't turn the corner. And so if the EPC can't turn the corner, this is where it gets really, really bad. Salespeople don't get paid because they're owed money. They have a whole tail of money, right? And you see a lot of complaints over that. I totally agree. If you work and you do your job, you deserve your pay, period, full stop. The homeowner doesn't get installed or doesn't get to PTO. That creates problems for the homeowner. So this is just the lender probably, in our case, when a contractor goes out of business, more often than not, GoodLeap, we sit down as an executive team and we make the determination where we will pay out of our company's profit margin. We will pay to get that job to PTO because we want the customer, ultimately the homeowner, to be happy. We want the salesperson to be able to get their commission if that's still, if that contractor's still around. But more importantly, we do not want regulators stepping in, because regulators will step in when the homeowner is being taken advantage of, or the view is that the homeowner is being taken advantage of. And so part of the way that we are self-regulating is we are doing everything in our power, even if it comes out of our margin, to make sure that homeowner is happy and they get to PTO. But your question is really, EPCs have to maintain healthy margins, otherwise they create a bunch of pain. Lenders, likewise, lenders have to create healthy margins. Otherwise, there's also, if lenders can't fund, and thankfully we haven't seen any lenders go out of business recently, but if they can't fund, that they can drive EPCs out of business. EPCs won't pay salespeople. It's just a catastrophic domino effect. We have to be very, very careful. So everybody's got to maintain healthy margins. And the key to understanding what those margins are education. I would say every EPC should be very open and honest with the sales entities that they work with. Here's what our margins are. You want us to be healthy. It's okay that you make more. That's between the salesperson and the EPC. That's between you guys. Okay. But if you can't run a healthy business, it's going to create pain for everybody.
In saying that, I'm over here thinking about that exact relationship and the way that red lines and being driven to the bottom and the race to the bottom, and you hear these things being said. Speak to when you see a lender in the space, multiple points lower
Yeah.
than you,
Yeah.
than GoodLeap or someone else, or a red line that is
Yeah.
10, 20 cents lower than the next guy.
Yeah.
Is that any sort of red flag?
Sure.
What can be learned there?
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk the EPC point first, right? This will actually apply to both, so I'll paint in broad strokes here. Nobody's got a magic wand. We all sell, all the lenders sell to the same people. We all either securitize, and we either do sort of a flow relationship where you sell pools of loans every couple of weeks, or you hold on to them for a longer period of time and maybe batch and sell them you securitize and sell them every 6 months. It doesn't matter. We all have the same buyers. We all do the same stuff. So it really comes down to your cost structure. GoodLeap happens to have a lower cost structure than most. We run a very efficient business, but we're all very, very similar, within a point or two of each other, right? So when you see somebody who comes into the space, usually if it's a new entrance into the space, if it's a financial institution that is new to the space and they're coming with something that is significantly lower than everyone else, it is more likely than not they just got the math wrong, and they're going to have to make they're making mistakes, and they're going to have to make some changes. That's not always the case. Sometimes you could be balance sheeting the business because you're owned by a much larger entity, but that's all common knowledge. Like, you know when that's happening. If that's not the case, it's simply somebody got the math wrong, and they're going to lose money until they decide not to lose money. And then, I think the more important question is, as a salesperson or a sales entity, why do you care?
Yeah. So does the salesperson, is it you get what you pay for?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. And okay, so if I'm, my red lines are a 205 or a 210 or a 220, great. Depending on market and volume and all those things that matter. But then you have someone enter the space where I'm at a 220 and they're saying, hey, I'm going to do $1.90. And I look at them and go, I have the same answer you do, Paul, which is, look, I buy the same material from the same people you buy them from. Mm-hmm. In fact, I have the same installers who used to work for you who now work for me.
Yeah.
So I know what my stack is. Yeah. My cost to install is pretty close to what yours is. Yep. How can you be 30 cents or 20 cents under?
Yeah.
Is that alarming for a sales team to see that?
It should be alarming for a sales team to see that. The question is, what are they really focused on? Are they focused on what's going to happen over the next 30 days? And can they get the lowest red lines for the next 30 days? Or are they in this business for the next 30 months or 30 years? If it's the last two, they have to be very leery about chasing the lowest red line. If you ask what is the most common denominator of the last 30 companies you've seen go out of business, they offered the lowest red lines in their space. They didn't understand their margins. They thought they were making money when they actually weren't, and the rooster came to roost.
And they're living on their M1 payments, and PTO clawbacks came into play pretty aggressively.
Yep.
We haven't really touched on any of that yet. I think it's widely known in the industry that M1s are kind of a thing of the past. You better learn how to operate your business on today's cash, not the future of today's sales.
Yeah.
Today's sales don't provide any cash. You actually put more cash out, and you better PTO that job in an adequate time frame or you're in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, any EPC you talk to will tell you M1s are a trap. Avoid M1s at all costs. They're a trap. They help you for the first 60 days. Then you get in this cycle of stuff that got paid out at NTP that didn't reach. Install starts to get clawed back, and you're kind of a net neutral within your business. That's not my opinion. That's the feedback. When we talk to EPCs, more often than not, they're like, we do not. Smart ones will say, we do not want M1s, because they recognize it for what it is. Now, nobody's trying to trap you. M1s were around before. The irony is, M1s or milestone payments have not been in this industry forever. They're actually it's a relatively recent phenomenon. When I was running resi sales for Solar City, I talked to a couple of the guys that had worked for me just to clarify it. I don't remember ever paying a milestone payment. And so I called one of them, John Frampton, who I think most people in the industry know, great guy. John worked for us and he really ran that side of the business for us at Solar City. I called John and I said, hey man, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember us ever paying anybody anything except at install. And he said, yeah, that's right. I said, so I just want to be clear. We were doing 24,000 sales a month and we were only paying at install. Yes. So just the reason why I'm saying it that way is I think that the skeptics would say it's impossible. You can't do it. The salespeople need, or the salespeople will only tolerate. Okay, I'm not arguing with that. I'm just telling you a fact. We were the largest sales company in the world. We were selling more than anyone has ever sold. Nobody's come close to us. And we never paid anybody a cent until the job was installed. So can that happen? Sure. Have things changed maybe and it can't happen anymore? I don't know. That's for you. I'm just a lender. That's for you guys to decide.
I'm just a lender over here.
Yeah.
That's incredibly fascinating. That's crazy.
Yeah.
20,000 plus a month. And yeah, we'll pay at install.
I think
that's how I started my company.
Totally.
We started it by paying at install.
Yeah.
That was just how it was done.
And listen, it's very hard. So recognize if you are a man or woman who is out selling, knocking doors, whatever the case may be, and you have to wait 6 months to get paid, that's a hardship. Period. Full stop. No one's saying it's not. And so believe me, and I think that's one of the hardest jobs on the planet, by the way, is knocking doors. All I'm saying, though, is I think if everyone could operate without milestone payments, the entire industry would be significantly healthier. Salespeople would be healthier, right? They don't have to worry about getting money paid, then getting it clawed back. EPCs don't have to chase people to claw money back. The EPCs are now in a place where lenders are no longer willing to offer those M1 payments or significantly lower amounts over time. It's a weird dynamic if you think about it. Giving upfront commissions to salespeople from the EPC, that's fine. That's your business. You can pay people advance commissions if you choose to. The fact that at some point that onus got pushed to the lender is really bizarre. Why would the lender give extra money? That's your operating capital. That's what you would, in a normal business, that's what just the EPC would use. I get it, understand why it happened, and everybody does the things they do can try to help. But it's a pretty toxic practice that I think the industry over the last year is starting to work itself away from. It's no different than the elongated time for PTO.
Yeah, what I'm seeing and the direction I think it should go, and everybody kind of works together, is less upfront or little upfront, most at install. But I actually do agree with some of it, a small portion being held for PTO.
Sure.
I think that does make sense, and I think that should trickle down to the sales guy too, and down to the sales org, right? So if you're holding a percentage of my money until it PTOs, or there's a potential that it gets clawed back, we're a partnership and we work together. You and I do, and I do that with my sales team. Yeah. And I think that if we're all aligned on when and how money gets dispersed, then everybody should win.
Agreed.
Right?
Yeah, and so I agree 100%. So let's double tap on this one for a second, or double click on this one. Salespeople in our space work very hard, and I think they deserve the money that they're getting paid. Right. So let's start there. If you are self-generating, again, probably the hardest job on the planet. No one is saying that salespeople should not be making money.
Right.
No.
Again, it may not be $1,500 a sale of mortgages, but maybe it's not 15,000 either.
Yeah, and I would say,
don't know.
Yeah, right, absolutely. And so I would say it's not my place to say what that dollar amount should be.
Yeah.
What I am saying is in most cases, the higher that number is, the tighter the margins are for the EPCs. If the margins are tighter for the EPCs, they are more likely to go out of business. When EPCs go out of business, they leave orphan customers. Orphan customers complain to regulators who feel the need to come in and put regulation in place. So this is why I'm saying it's really, really difficult to solve, because if you're a single salesperson, you say, I don't control all that. I'm only one person. How do I?
I want to make as much money as I can. I'm out knocking doors. It's 35 degrees. It's January in Utah.
Totally. Or it's 110 in Arizona, or whatever it is. And so that is not to say that is unwarranted or unfair. It is just to illustrate it is very difficult when you have tens of thousands of individuals trying to help them understand how the margins work in the entire industry and what is beneficial for them long term. Short term, we're in a short term beneficial model right now, which is the way the stack is shaking out. Great. And again, free market economy, not for us to say what's right or what's not. What I can tell you though is it's if we don't self-regulate, if things don't change a little bit, regulators 100% are going to step in probably within the next 2 years and they are going to put draconian policies in place, very similar to what's happened in the mortgage space. And everybody is going to feel the pain. How do we know this? Because they're asking us for advice today. We have, as I mentioned, 14, it's probably closer to 17 now, attorneys general that are, we have to work on all of these. We have 3,500 orphan customers that did not reach PTO before their contractor went out of business. We step in. We
4,500?
Correct.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's probably 3,500 today.
And that's just one lender.
Yeah, that's just us.
Just you.
Yeah, that's just us.
Yeah.
I think that number was probably twice that at one point. And, big companies like Pink Energy go out, those sorts of things. And we step in. We step in and we do our best. But, we're working with those regulators and they're looking at these things. And anybody that's listening to this, that's in the space, all you have to do is say, if you were a regulator, what are the most damning questions you would ask? And now verbalize those in your head. And if you don't like the answers, then recognize we have a problem, because somebody's going to ask those questions. They're going to get a hold of someone who has your knowledge base, and they're going to start asking those questions, right? Tell me about cost per watt maximums. Tell me about cost per kilowatt. How do we know the customer is saving money? How did you sell that TPO? What's your script? That I know that you assume that customer said they were going to pay off their TPO in the first 3 years. What's their payoff? How do you know that? How did you design the system? What's the escalator? There's so many areas. And so I think we have to be very, very cautious. And I think I like that you and other leaders in the industry are banding together to start problem solving on some of these things, because I definitely think it's needed. I wonder if it's too late, if I'm being honest with you.
I can't help but wonder myself, but that's not going to stop me from trying, right?
Nor should it.
So, yeah, I wonder the same thing, but better late than never, better now than never, and I'm absolutely committed to that, as I know the other leaders are.
Yeah.
I think it goes back to what you said, which is for an installer to a sales team, sales leaders, sales owners, is transparency and honesty and letting them know where we're at. Hey, man, these are my margins. This is where I got to be. Mm-hmm. This is what I got to do. And as an installer discipline, being disciplined on that number, but you got to know your numbers. You got to know, how many installers out there don't truly know their cost stack.
Yes.
It's sad.
Yeah, it's not uncommon. And the guys and gals on my team, some of which you've mentioned, have been with me for a decade, 15, some cases 20 years. They know this industry cold. They led very large teams in the solar industry for me, and so they oftentimes will come in and they'll work with contractors and help them flush out that cost stack and help them look at things objectively.
Awesome. We need more of that. We need more. And I always revert back to education. The industry is so young. There are uneducated CEOs. There are uneducated owners. Yeah. There are uneducated salespeople, homeowners. We got to be just digesting and just diving into as much information and knowledge as possible to truly lift the industry up. I'm going to shift gears one more time before we close.
Sure.
I want you to tell the listeners a little bit about Give Power. What is Give Power? How is it related to GoodLeap? How can people get involved with Give Power?
Oh yeah, that's great. Thank you. What a great plug. So we as I mentioned before, in the good concept of our companies and GoodLeap and GoodFinch, when we were at Solar City, we really wanted to develop a charity and something that was a way for all of us to give back. And so it started under a variety of different things, but Give Power really is an organization that was designed to help those in need wherever they may be. Some we've done some projects here in the U.S., but most of the projects tend to be in third world countries, right? So it started as us traveling to these countries and putting solar panels on schools and giving power where there were no power. We'd call them treks, and we'd take 10 to 12 people. We'd go into country. I personally have gone to Nicaragua, Colombia, Nepal, Kenya. Just amazing opportunities to go out there and you bring your kids with you. In some cases, I brought my oldest son with me to Kenya, and what an amazing experience for him. Over time, what we learned was giving electricity to a school on a plantation in the middle of the jungle in Colombia is awesome, because the adults typically couldn't read. They were working from dusk till dawn. They get back, it's dark. They can't go to school. you really change the community when all of a sudden now there's 2 hours of light and they can read when they can learn how to read. What we started learning though is electricity was not actually the biggest problem. It was water. It was water scarcity. And we started seeing some really, really horrific numbers from some of these communities. Like we would go to these communities, install solar, and they would say, "Thank you so much. This is a godsend. You guys are amazing. Can you help us with the water?" We said, "What's going on with the water?" And they're like, "Our death rate of children under the age of 12 is 30% because we drink brackish water." And oh my God, wait, what? So we actually shifted gears quite a bit. And the team has patented and built some solar panel powered desalinization plants that we now drop in country and just to give you an example. Oh, I brought some stats. I don't want to mess this up. Aparna, who's on the team, is, if you don't know Aparna, she is one of the coolest people on the planet.
If you don't know Aparna, you are missing out. Your life is not full until you have met her.
That's right. So Aparna, I asked Aparna for some stats because she's the VP. She runs this side of the business for us. But we've done projects in 27 different countries. We've powered 2,418 schools. We've installed just under 200 solar microgrids. We've brought just under 900 volunteers to these developing countries to go do the installations. And we've deployed 13 solar water farms that I mentioned. By the end of this year, we'll have 2 more in place. And so by the end of this year, the water alone we will be giving clean drinking water to 1 million people every day at the end of this year. So 1 million people every day now are getting access to clean water where it didn't exist before.
My jaw literally opened. Yeah. I did not know that. 1 million a day.
Yeah.
So One Solar just joined Give Power recently, and I met Aparna, my wife and I, and other executives in the company, had multiple calls with her. We're planning our trek for next year. We're super pumped about it. It's become part of our pitch, part of who we are. And if you truly are in the solar industry and in the business to give back and for the planet and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Give Power. I mean, dude, it's phenomenal. I think it's awesome. How does someone get involved in Give Power today?
Yeah, well, you can always reach out to us. But if you can go online, Give Power. I mean, look, it has become a major, major charity now. I'm sure you're familiar with Mr. Beast. If you're not,
my son is.
Children are
completely.
Yes, absolutely. So Mr. Beast has done on his charity channel. They've done 2 treks. I don't know, probably 30 million views or something crazy. This guy's incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you can reach out to Give Power. You can reach out to anybody at GoodLeap. We can direct you in the right place. And this isn't a we hit up our friends for money thing. This is probably the most wholesome good that any of us have ever had an opportunity to contribute in and to do. And so, companies like yours make a small donation from every sale, and that goes fully to the charity. The important thing when we built the charity was we wanted 100% of the money raised from companies like yours to go where it was needed. So GoodLeap covers all of the hard costs associated with the Give Power charity. So myself and Hayes and Matt and others made the decision very early on that we will cover, GoodLeap specifically will cover all the hard costs associated with Give Power. So every dollar that anybody donates goes to the people in need and the water and the desalinization plants and all the other stuff. So there's no big salaries, there's none of the stuff that turns people off from giving.
Awesome. No, that attracted me to it instantly when I found out where the money was going. It's a small donation for every install or every funded job that we do. And it's not just our GoodLeap funded jobs. It's all the funded jobs, all the cash, all of them. And we donate that and we put it in. And for me to, make that decision with our executive team, with my wife, and then to say, hey, we want to do bigger things. We want to do things that are great for humanity. And this is our way of giving back. And then, hey, we can go on a trek and experience a third world country or another country, wherever, to build this. I remember last year, I want to say it was maybe 6 months ago or less, when you went with your son to Kenya.
Yeah.
You called me like in some layover in Africa or Europe or somewhere.
Yeah.
That was so cool to hear you explain to me where you'd been, what you were doing in that story. And that literally gave me chills as you described that. And I was like, man, we can do more. We can do more. And I love the Give Power movement. I think it's awesome to be a part of it. So you and the whole team over there and Aparna running it, it's just such a great feel, such a great environment.
Oh, thank you, man. We appreciate it. I think if nothing else, we can go to bed at night knowing that, one, we focused on solar power, which we fundamentally believe is good. We provided lots of careers and opportunity for amazing sales professionals. We do things the right way. We created this great charity that's brought in, tens of millions of dollars and, a million people now getting fresh water. And again, just to be real, the mortality rate in children under 12 in these areas is staggering. So we're legitimately saving lives. Your donations save lives, and it's really cool. So if nothing else, we happen to all be very blessed because we work in an amazing industry. There's plenty of opportunity, and we can really give back and do a lot of good.
Love it. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. I want to close with my three closing questions for all my guests.
Lay them on me.
Okay. Yours is these three questions. As a lender in solar, what is one thing today we need to stop doing in solar?
Oof. Okay. One thing that we need to stop doing. I think I might have to modify it a little bit. Okay. We have to stop allowing greed to drive our industry. We have to stop allowing bad actors to get away with bad acts. And we have to band together to change those things. Those are even in the core, everyone I think can agree with those things. Evil is bad and bad things are bad and we should stop all that stuff. But I think we need to get a lot more courageous around fixing those. So we need to stop that.
So what's, as a leading lender in solar, what's one thing that we need to continue doing? Something we're doing good today that we need to continue doing this as an industry.
Yeah, I think we need to, I think it's the biggest threat to us. We need to continue to be brave and focus on self-regulation. I think we need to find areas where we can do real good, like we were just talking about with the Give Power charity and those sorts of things. I think that's really important. Cut out the greed. We all get it. We're all competitive, type A, hard chargers, right? Our scorecard is how much I totally get all that. You get a few more gray hair, you're going to start realizing that stuff's not really that important. It's the impact you leave on the planet and the people around you that is significantly more important than your lime green Lamborghini or whatever silly thing that was your check mark for success in the past. And so I think we need to continue to do those things.
Okay. Last question. What's one thing that we can start doing today to help the industry?
I like the organization that you guys are a part of, and I think that adopting that more. And then, we talked a lot about Give Power, but that's a pretty easy first move, right? If you're not sure, maybe you've got maybe you disagree with some of what I've said, and, you're a salesperson who believes, you should make more money than anybody else under any circumstances. Who cares? That's fine. Everybody's got their opinion. I think we can all rally behind children dying in a foreign country because they don't have clean water, and we have the ability to stop that from happening. I mean, if you can't rally behind that, we need to get some jumper cables to your heart.
Yeah. So you can start you can join Give Power.
That's right.
You can give back. You can join the RSA, the Residential Solar Association. Join that nonprofit as well. Help uplift the solar industry.
Yeah, be brave. Stand up, man. Say, if somebody's making, I don't want to focus on, too much money. There's all kinds of things that are kind of wonky and broken in our space. Whatever those things are, don't be shy, man. Stand up, call them out. Break the mold. The more people that speak up and start talking about the things that are broken in our industry, the faster we're going to, glom together and rally and fix them. But yeah, the least you can do is find a charity. It doesn't have to be ours. Find a charity that you believe in that gives back. And the world has so much need and there's so much good that can be done. That's a go today. You're listening to this today, immediately go find the charity you feel the most passionate about and go contribute. If you want to go on treks and take your kid to Kenya and do some stuff like I've done, then Give Power is a fantastic way. It's already built out. It's charity in a box kind of thing. And it dovetails really nicely. But again, I don't want anybody to think we're hitting you up for money. We're not. Go find a charity that you feel good about. I think that's the immediate move.
Love it. Awesome. Okay. Paul Stephan, Chief of Business Development at GoodLeap. You told me 5 months ago you were going to come on my podcast,
Yes.
and I never texted you again. I didn't bother you. A man of his word. I knew he was coming in, and you just hit me up and said, I'm going to be in town, man.
Yeah.
I'm going to be on your podcast, so I appreciate that.
Of course.
You, just like everyone else at GoodLeap, just incredible humans and men and women of their word. And my relationship with you and your team, I hold at the highest regard and super high in my organization. Everyone close to me at One Solar knows that. And my man, very good friend of mine. Thank you for coming in and coming on the show today. We could not get Survivor's Jeff Probst on, but everyone, we had Paul Stephan from GoodLeap. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Jake.